Hello and welcome to the presentation for the Idaho Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. I'm Angie Murillo and I am here joined by my counterparts across the state, Caleb Tibbetts and Robert Price. We are area transition counselors, and we will explain in a moment a little bit more about what that means, but we wanted to start with letting you know kind of the areas that we cover. So I work in regions, what we call regions 1 and 2. So it's essentially all of North Idaho, the Panhandle, down to about Riggins. And then Caleb.
Hi, everyone. I work in the Treasure Valley. So you can see on the map there, it's Glens Ferry, all the way over to Oregon, all the way up to McCall, and then all the way down to the other border.
And I'm Robert Price. I work on the eastern half of the state. And as you can see by the map, I do by far the most work. I have to go from past Twin Falls, clear north to Salmon, and then Idaho Falls, Pocatello areas.
Okay, we don't know if he does the most work, but he at least does the most driving. That's for sure. So a lot of you may recognize our faces, at least because the three of us have been working for VR for several years, but we have taken on some new positions called the area transition counselors. And so our roles are no longer as direct and frequent in the schools as far as going to as many IEP meetings as we have in the past. There are new counselors assigned to those schools. Our role kind of incorporates 4 things. It's to, as you can see, increase collaboration between VR and the school districts, expand the access to pre-ETS and our services for all students in Idaho. So we've always been available to our services for all students, but we want to expand and make sure that we really are reaching all students who could be eligible for our services. We are also here to develop some new programs and then support the assigned VR counselor at each school. So all the schools have a VR counselor, but sometimes we can't get to all the meetings, so we may fill in, we may support, we may do some training, maybe working on projects with the schools, we will come in together. So we don't spend as much time on a daily basis or a frequent basis in the schools, but you could still see us around and helping out those counselors and making new programs. So just to start off, a little overview about what we will share in our presentation today. We're going to do a quick general overview about what VR services are in general, just to make sure you understand who we are and what we do. And then we will have a good discussion about VR services for students and the types of services that we can provide. We will also talk about some specific programs that we have available to students. And then we will explain the referral process and what you can do to get this information to us for students and how we get students set up in that program. So Caleb is going to share with us now.
Okay, great. And I think we're just going to talk about here just general vocational rehabilitation. So our main mission here is and what we do is assist individuals with disabilities to prepare for, secure, and retain employment. That's the simplest way we can put it. We individualize services, so everything is personalized. It's all depends on the individual. So what one service, might be a perfect fit for one person, it might not be a good fit for the other person. I always like to say we try to maximize the individual's potential and however that looks and however that is related to their employment goals. Adult services it's pretty widespread. They can include general counseling and guidance, job search, job placement, job coaching, anything like that, just general job training, or vocational training or other post-secondary education like college or other trade programs. Just depends on what that individual is seeking and what they want to do after high school. But during high school, we provide what's called pre-employment transition services. And so I'm just going to talk a little more about that because this is really the focus of our presentation today. So we wanted to introduce the adult side of things, what we can do when students graduate and what we do for students or for anyone. Anyone can access our services, adults included, of course. But our focus today is pre-employment transition services. And we just usually say pre-ETS because that's, quite a mouthful. And these are services provided to students with disabilities. So we still focus on individuals with disabilities, but this is at the high school level. And a simple definition of PREETs are opportunities for students with disabilities to learn through work and education. And again, it'll depend on the individual and what they need, but they're individualized services while students are still in high school. And we'll talk about these different PREETs throughout this presentation. But first we want to focus on, how do you know if you're eligible for VR or PREETs specifically? So there is an age requirement to receive some of these programs we're going to talk about, or all of these programs we're going to talk about. The age requirement is 14 to 21. So if you're 13 and a half, you wouldn't be eligible. And if you just turned 22, you wouldn't. There's other things you would be eligible. Well, 22, you'd be eligible for our adult program, but this is specific to the PREETs program. You must be enrolled in an official education program. This could be a GED program if you were to drop out of traditional high school and be seeking something else. It could be online traditional or untraditional high school. It could just be in high school, or it could be some kind of post-secondary program like college or a trade program. So as long as you have that educational goal and you're aged 14 to 21, you would be eligible for the PREETs. Student must have a disability. Typically, we serve individuals on IEPs and 504 plans, but if a student is working with another mental health provider or other specialized provider and they have a disability, and we can prove that they have a disability through some kind of documentation, they would also be eligible. Like I said, typically you'll hear us talk about IEP or 504 or special education students, but that's not a necessity. So we just wanted to talk about that real quick. And that's pretty much that. And Robert's going to talk about the 5 required PREETs.
All right, so we work under the WIOA, the Workforce Initiative Opportunity Act. WIOA outlines 5 essential groups or that we focus on: work-based learning experiences, job exploration, counseling on enrollment opportunities, workplace readiness training, and instruction on self-advocacy. We're going to go into a little more depth on all 5 of those. So we'll start with our work-based learning experiences. Work-based learning experiences is my personal favorite of the 5 that we do. We help students find job summer work through third-party contracts that we have that we'll get into later. We work with schools to do after-work school. We work with schools in our rural areas that don't have where a student may have limited work opportunities to work in the summer, or maybe with the school in some other fashion. We work with private businesses, thinking like grocery stores or convenience stores or any other private business that you can think of. And then that also includes things like informational interviews and work site tours. An informational interview, another way I look at that is like a reverse job fair type of thing, where a student gets to go ask an employer questions instead of the employer asking them questions. And then the next one is we'll look at is job exploration counseling. And this is really something that the VR counselors themselves like to focus on. We like to go in and we talk to our students, whether it be one-on-one or in a small group setting, about jobs that they might be interested in. Then we get into the labor markets and the current trends that are happening, discuss why their interests might work well with a certain vocational goal, or why it might not, and they might need to look at other things. We like to do inventories, just small, whether it just be a small pen and paper inventory or quick inventories on a computer, are some of the things we do in our job exploration counseling. The next one is counseling on enrollment opportunities. And this one, the best example I can give you for this one is work we partner with ISU Career Center. And ISU Career Center, when they go in and they work with our students, they have a great example that Jeff that does that uses. He goes through the life and times of a plumber versus a school teacher. So you teachers will appreciate this. And he talks about the educational differences between a plumber and a school teacher, the physical demands of a plumber versus a teacher, the pay scale of a plumber versus a teacher, all the way clear through retirement, where a teacher may have something like a pension, where a plumber may be self-employed and doesn't. So he goes through that whole gamut on why making a career choice, how that impacts you over the longevity of your life. And then we just, as you see on the slide, there's some other things. We try to get our students in contact with Like disability services, we try to get them in contact with administration, financial aid, that sort of thing, just to help them navigate the world of college. And or if they're not going to college, we'll look at like apprenticeship programs or on-the-job training programs. The next one we're going to look at is workplace readiness training. This is a real key for us with our 100-hour summer work stuff that we're going to get into later. This is a key component of that. We want all of our students to go through some form of work readiness training before they start a job. So just, we have some highlights on the slide. Think of resume, how to ask for a day off from an employer, basic job skills. Another example of something that we do, big picture, that some of you may be familiar with, is we like to run reality towns. We run Reality Town. This year, we're actually running it in several schools. It also runs with Tools for Life. If any of you have been for Tools for Life, Reality Town is a financial literacy game where students essentially get a persona. You know, say something like, you're 30 years old, you're married, you have 2 kids, you make $2,800 a month, and then they get to go around Reality Town and they have to buy a house or rent a house, a car, and food and groceries, paid for childcare, that sort of thing. So Reality Town's a good hands-on experience for our students to understand how money is going to impact them, and it's pretty fun for us. We always get the comment from at least 1 or 2 of our students that they're never going to have kids because they're just too expensive. And then the last one we're going to talk about is instruction and self-advocacy. And this is a big one for our students that at Voc Rehab we are trying to bring into the schools more and help our students with. We see that our students really struggle. Most of our students really struggle with being able to advocate for themselves, go up to a teacher or potential employer, or let's say they're going to a college university and they're talking to the disability people, and be able to really advocate for themselves and say what their disabilities are and what accommodations they need. And so what we've seen, and something that we're working on building, is helping these students realize that if they can say what their accommodations and needs are, they will be able to transition into work or school or training, hopefully quicker. And those are really our five key groups that we work in, and we focus our time and energy on.
Great. And what PREAT's programs are is that each one of them focuses on 1 or 2 or even 3 of those categories that Robert just talked about. And so we're going to talk about, let's see, these 6 different programs that we have. One of them is the BSU Prep Academy. Now, in a typical year, this would be something that is residential. This year it is in person. It's our only in-person college prep camp, but the students aren't gonna stay at Boise State. They're going to come in the morning and then leave at night due to COVID. But we'll just talk about exactly what this is. Students spend 1 week on the BSU campus, a great opportunity for them to be able to experience college life for free. We pay for this 100%. And they go through some like fake college classes to kind of see what that's going to be like. They obviously do campus tours and kind of get to know the different facilities at this specific campus, but it also, there's things that they learn that extend to other campuses. They just experience or learn about how to access the Student Access Center, or some schools call it the Student Disability Center. Learn how to self-advocate for themselves and learn how to receive accommodations. What kind of accommodations can you receive on the college campus? All these really important things related to college. Budgeting, how to budget for college, different things like that. This summer, we are running this. There's 3 cohorts of 6 students each to kind of keep the group small. This is actually going to be in person, but we've ran this. I can't guarantee we'll have it next year, but we probably will. We've ran it over the last several summers. It's a partnership with BSU that we have here. So if this sounds like something students will be interested in, reach out to us so we can get them signed up for this. And then this next one, again, you're going to hear me say in a normal year. In a typical year, this would be a residential camp too, but this year we're doing things a little bit differently, and this is actually going to be a virtual academy. But these virtual college prep type academies, or this one specifically isn't so much college prep, but it's similar. It's through Idaho State University. They do interview through an avatar system, which is pretty cool. They learn communication skills. A lot of this is actually going to be an educational version of Minecraft that the students are able to play. A lot of the students nowadays are loving this Minecraft game, so they've incorporated that as part of an educational version of that video game that a lot of students have been excited about. There's going to be employer presentations. Like I said, the use of those avatars for interview type skills. Really exciting. What I love about the virtual academies this year, and this one, and then the one I'll talk about in just a second, this, a lot of students maybe couldn't get to the Pocatello campus where this is typically ran, but they will be able to participate, especially some of our rural, or, this is statewide, so anybody could participate in this program because it's virtual. So I think this is just really opening up this opportunity to a lot of students, and I'm really excited to see how many students from all over the state take advantage of it. And the final academy I want to talk about, this is another college prep program, and this is 100% virtual. In a typical year, it wouldn't be, but it is this year. And it's really similar to that Boise State one I talked about, but this is just a virtual version of that. So they experience college life, they learn about how to access that student educational center, which is a really important part of college. But here they're going to focus on time management and a little more on job exploration. So they're going to have professors come in, and there's going to be college mentors that kind of mentor students through choosing their major and what that means. And, say a student is particularly interested in engineering, they'll have the engineering teacher come down and speak to students about that program and what kind of classes and how rigorous it is and how to get into the program, all these different things. And they're going to really tailor it to each individual. They've actually set some time available for each student to kind of individualize that and really learn about what the student wants to learn about. So those are our three higher ed programs. And then we're just going to talk about a few more of these programs too.
So another one of our formal programs that we have is called Work of Art. This program we run 2 to 3 times a year in the Coeur d'Alene area, also in Moscow, and then in Boise, and we run those in person. But one good thing to come out of COVID was that we actually learned that we could do this virtually as well. So we had one virtual last summer, and we believe there will be a virtual one again this summer. Work of Art is a program where the students work with a teaching artist, and they create some type of art piece, art installation that has been commissioned by an organization or business in the community. And this can be a really wide range of different things. In the Coeur d'Alene area, there's been some where we've done paintings. Actually, this painting that's on the screen was done by a student in one of our Coeur d'Alene ones recently. They've done graphic design work for a business, designing a logo. One year they created a statue that's in a garden area of a residential assisted living facility. So it's something different every time, but the students get the chance to learn kind of what it's like to be in an art career and have to follow the directions of what they've been commissioned to do. And then interlaced in with that artwork that they're doing, they are learning, they're receiving work readiness training. So they are filling out timesheets. This is a paid work experience. They're talking about communication. There's a lot of teamwork that's involved with Work of Art. They have to do things like, if the student's favorite color is blue and they really want the art piece to be blue, but they were commissioned to make it purple, they have to make it purple. And then they also just talk about soft skills, how to be on time, and if the student's running late, to make sure they call the teacher, and so they're informing them of their lateness and things like that. So they're learning those skills, and it's a really great, I like to say it's sort of a less intimidating way to start some work experience. It's not as scary as going into a business and starting that job, but they are getting a realistic experience of work. And it really sets them up, especially if they're interested in the art field, for some great positive experience to be excited about work. And I think in general, a lot of our programs that we do, it really builds confidence for the students. And so any of these that we're talking about, we always just want them to have a good, successful experience so that they can have a positive outlook and start to look at their abilities and skills to contribute to the world of work and be successful. So that's work of art. One other formal program that we can do is called Conover Online. And this can be done in a couple different ways. We can work individually with students as counselors. We can work with the students to work through this program, but we are also working to be able to offer it within classrooms. So this can be used especially in a special ed classroom. So those transition goals that are always on the IEP that sometimes we know it's hard to really thoroughly cover in an effective way. This Conover Online can actually be a great way in your classroom to get students some of those transition skills. And so students do need to fill out our request for service form, which we'll get to in a minute. But if anyone in the classroom does that, they can actually have access to this program. The Conover Online has 4 sections of it. MECA includes job exploration and career exploration, workplace readiness. It's those soft skills, how to be ready for a job, how to get the job and keep the job. The functional skills system is really great for kids who need some modeling because it's all video based. There's over 5,000 videos available within the functional skills system, and it's everything independent living skills that they would need, from telling time and how to brush your teeth. There's how to introduce yourself. There's some specific to work, but then also just general independent living skills. And it's really great. The students are really enjoying that. And then the final area is personal responsibility, setting goals. And this is for kids who are kind of know what they want to do, but they're ready to take the next step. So this is a great program. I think that we are statewide getting a lot of classrooms set up to use this program. And I have been having some really great feedback. So if this is something that you are interested in for your classroom to use with teachers, please let one of us know, and we can kind of walk you through with more information and how to get us set up. And so Robert now is going to share about one of our other programs.
If I can get myself unmuted anyways. So I'm going to talk about our summer work experiences. And these are, these ones we're going to talk about first are specific to certain areas. So this is 20 hours of work readiness training. And so we think about the work readiness I talked about a few minutes ago. The 20 hours of work readiness training is unpaid. And then we have 100 hours of paid work experience. So what the students do is they do the 20 hours of work readiness training where they learn resume writing skills and how to interact with an employer properly. And then they go to on the job and they work 100 hours of paid work experience. If a student needs, we do have trainers available, or another word we might call them as a job coach is available to go on the job with the students to help them learn the skills they need to be able to complete that specific job to the expectations of the employer. So we're just going to go through some of these. So these are the ones in the Treasure Valley West, East, Central, Mountain Home, Fruitland, and Emmett are the contracted 100-hour work experiences we have in the Treasure Valley. Then we have Eastern Idaho Falls, Rexford, Pocatello, Blackfoot, Preston, Twin Falls, Burley. And then the last group that we have are contracted in Coeur d'Alene and Lewiston. Now, if you have a student or you're working in an area that is not on this list of areas where we're contracted, and you have a student that really wants to work, get a hold of one of us 3. If you know your local VR counselor, they can help you, we can help you. But we can do individualized work-based learning experiences for 100 hours with our students, and we want to do as many of those as we can. Work experiences are really what we at Voc Rehab feel like, not to minimize the other 4 areas, but we really like to do work experiences. We know that our students benefit greatly from these work experiences. So if your location is not on this list, just get a hold of us if you have a student that's really interested, and we will do all we can to figure something out for them in the summer as well.
And that leads us into, if you have a student that is interested in these, or maybe you have a student in mind that you're like, oh, that program would be a great fit for so-and-so, or maybe you just talk to your students about our different programs that we've talked about today. However, your students find out, you might be asking, how can my students access these services? And it's really a pretty simple process for teachers, administrators, staff at all. They just have to refer the student to VR. And then we will help the student determine exactly. So you might say they want a work experience. Well, we can help determine which of our work experiences, we have a few different ones, which one they'd be the best fit for. And that's kind of, something we are familiar with. We're familiar with our programs. We're used to doing that. So just refer them to VR and we'll take care of the rest. So that might lead you to ask, how can I refer my student to VR? Well, it's really quite simple. It can be either a formal or an informal referral. Our formal referral is going to be our request for pre-ETS form. In this form, fairly simple to fill out, as you can see, basic name, address, phone. There is a social security number or state student ID, and this is super important. A lot of times this field gets left blank, and then we're left trying to track down. But for some reason, people don't like to do that. If the parent or student doesn't want to provide the social security number, the school can provide the state student ID. Now, this isn't just the student ID that the student probably knows. It's a 9-digit number. It kind of looks like a social security number, honestly. So that's why we have that language there, the 9-digit number. Just wanted to mention that because it's often left blank. Then there's some parent guardian information, some quick. Now, this is another important part of this field. In order to be eligible for our pre-employment transition services, students must be receiving special education services, as you can read here, on an IEP or a 504, or we have to have documentation proving or documenting that the individual does have a valid diagnosis or disability. However, we do not need the IEP. We do not need the documentation. If a teacher or school staff representative signs this form stating that this individual is enrolled in high school and is receiving special education services. It's that simple. And so the eligibility process here is really quite easy. Teacher signature, the parents fill out the form, and then at the bottom here, the parent and student signs the form. If the student's over 18, they don't even need the parent or guardian to sign this. If they're under 18 or they're not, their only guardian, we need both signatures. And this is actually a built-in release of information to the school district, because a lot of times we need to be able to share information back and forth between the school district. And so this allows us to say, yeah, Johnny participated in the summer work experience. Here's how it went. And it's just built in right into this form. So we love the use of this form. It allows us, well, we're going to talk about that form a little more detail, but really the focus there is it allows us to provide all of these pre-employment transition services. And it's a great way for you guys to be able to refer students to VR. Just, fax us the form or get it to us however you can. And then we have all that information to be able to contact that student and provide services. But it can also be an informal, it can be an IEP invite. A lot of times, that's not necessarily a referral, but it's a way for, what we mean by referral is just a way for you to connect us to students. Because we really rely on the school district teachers to connect us to the students. We do not have access to these students unless you guys, give us that connection. So an IEP invite, that could work if it fits in, with the schedule and you get the approval and everything. And it can just be an email with contact info. Lately, I've gotten a lot of these. Just somebody saying, hey, I got verbal permission to share this parent's phone number and name with you. Can you give them a call and follow up with them? They'd like to learn more about VR services. That's a simple referral. And that definitely helps us connect to students. So we appreciate any of these types of referrals. So send your VR referrals to your assigned VR counselor. If you do not know who that VR counselor is, so every school has a specific VR counselor that is not one of us three, the area transition counselors. We are assigned to different areas around the state, like we talked about in the beginning, but we're not technically assigned to any one school district. So really, we want you to connect with your assigned VR counselor, and then that VR counselor may bring us into it. So it might be that student might ultimately be served by one of your area transition counselors, or that VR counselor, it might be more appropriate for them to serve the student. It's all oak rehab. It doesn't really matter who serves that student as long as the student's getting the services that they will benefit from. If you're unsure who that school VR counselor is, then definitely contact one of us, myself, Angie, Robert, so that we can connect you. So it's not that you can't send referrals to us. We didn't want to confuse anyone. You guys might know who your VR counselor is. And so you might say, oh, I usually send them to so-and-so and it's been working well. Don't change that process that you have with your VR counselor. But if you really are unsure and you don't know how to connect with VR, that's where we really want you to reach out to one of us, and we'll handle that case and get that student connected to the services.
Okay, so some of you who've maybe been around for a while and have worked with VR for a long time know that historically our sign up process for service, it is a process. We are not, especially our adult services, we're not an emergency service, and so eligibility can be a process. And it used to be that our students had to go through that full eligibility process to receive any of the services that you just heard us talk about, and it can take a while to get that done. But we actually now have something called a pre-case, and that form that Caleb showed you, the request for pre-employment transition services, that allows a student to access this pre-case. The great thing about a pre-case versus what used to be known, kind of what we used to have to do, what we call a traditional case, is that the pre-case really allows those students to get the services really quickly. They don't have to go through that full eligibility process, as long as we can document that they have a disability and are in school meeting those age requirements. They can get up and running really quick to work with us. So there's also a little bit less responsibility and commitment on the student. With the traditional case, they really have to be responding and meeting with the VR counselor once a month, and they really need to be working towards a specific employment goal. And a lot of times our students just aren't ready for that. And it might be that for a while they're working with their VR counselor a lot because they're maybe doing some job exploration activities, but once they do that, maybe they're ready for a break and they're just want to think about that for a few months. They don't have to do that, and they can open and close pre-cases as often as they need to. So it's just a really, really great way for students to access those pre-ed services that we've been talking about. Students can apply at any time for a traditional VR case. So if they are working with a VR counselor and we find that they need to have a little bit more services and more support than what can be given through a pre-case, they can apply for that with the assistance of that VR counselor they're working with at any time. We do have some videos and some information on our website that we wanted to share with you to kind of help understand this. If you can see there's a link there directly to our students page, but this is our main VR page, and we can take you to the student pages, and you can share this, of course, with other school staff, with students, with families. But this just gives a little bit of information about some of those services that we've been talking about. These two videos here are really great if you're not quite sure or understanding our new pre-case process or the difference between that and a traditional case. These two videos are a great way to kind of understand what the difference is between those two cases. And so you can share those. And then you can also go into our recurring services section and get some more information about some of those formal programs that we showed you, talked about. So that's that. I'm gonna pop back over to our PowerPoint here. And really that is the end of what we want to share. You can see on the screen we have our contact information here, but you also should have in your, not sure what they're calling them, but they're the digital packet for the Transition Institute. You should also have access to a copy of that pre-case request form, some other information about VR services, I believe possibly this slideshow as well. I'm not sure about that, but that is it. If you guys see this and you have questions, please reach out to us specifically so we can get those questions answered for you. And we really hope that we can start to serve more students and collaborate with you. Robert and Caleb, do you guys have anything to add before we close up?
I'm good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for watching.